So I've never been a big fan of change, like not at all. Whenever I like something, I usually stick to it for a very long time, especially when it comes to my choice of tech. I've tested a bunch of different tech stuff, like different phones, operating systems, or any kind of hardware really, but when I liked something, it was basically a choice for life. And this is why me changing to a MacBook Pro and actually liking it felt kind of weird at first, because I've been using Windows for the past 12 years and never thought about changing to a Mac. So why did I make the choice to leave my beloved Windows back and join the cult of the Apple fanboys? Well, I didn't. I was forced to. A couple months ago I switched to a different company, and when I asked them if I could use a Windows laptop, they said, if I recall it correctly, no. So as a lifelong Windows user, I started working with the all-new M3 Max MacBook Pro, and I was ready to hate every single aspect about it, like I've been doing for the last 12 years. But I have to admit, I couldn't have been more wrong. Using a MacBook was really an eye-opening experience, and it changed my life and how I'm using a computer. Of course, I still have a few problems, but unless Apple is going to mess up big time, I don't think that I'll change back to Windows anytime soon. There are many questions on which opinions differ, like Windows or Mac, iOS or Android, dark or light mode, but of course on this one there's only one correct answer. And if you would have asked me a couple months ago, I would have been able to tell you 5 reasons why MacBooks are inferior to any Windows PC, and I always thought that MacBook users are some kind of specially able tech users. Despite never using one myself, I always thought that a Mac is basically a computer which took away a bunch of functionality, which did not make it suitable for any actual work. I thought it was some kind of golden cage for people that were too fancy for a Windows PC, but it turns out that it really depends on your workflow. I find that if you're doing a lot of creative work like video editing or more technical stuff like programming, everything just runs a lot faster and smoother on a Mac, while playing video games and using the PC in a more casual way seemed more comfortable on a Windows PC, but I guess that is just personal preference. And if you want to prove a point to your colleagues and show them how edgy you are, well, then you should be using a Linux machine. I have always been a huge Windows fan. Back in the days, I started using the Windows Vista laptop of my dad and played the pre-installed games like Minesweeper, Mahjong or Chess Titans, but eventually I've installed so much malware because I want a brand new iPhone like 3 times a week, and it got so slow that you could barely log in anymore. In the meantime, I had a Chromebook, but I hated it so much so I tried to install Windows on it, but well, that didn't work out too good. Then I moved on to a Windows 7 system, which I also annihilated with all sorts of free games and malware, all the way to my Dell XPS laptop, which I used for my software engineering studies, and my own Windows 10 PC build. My gaming PC looked and felt absolutely great, until you started playing games on it, because the fans kind of sounded like a plane taking off under my table. The laptop was great for taking it around with me because it was so light and the battery was also not too bad, but the 8 gigs of RAM were always maxed out pretty fast, which did not really allow me to do anything that needs some decent performance. The thing with Windows is that I was just used to it. I mean, I grew up with it and it was the only thing I've ever known, and it was just comfortable. I always knew exactly where everything is and how to use it, and therefore I never even considered other options. But the super loud fans, the performance issues, and the moment of pure fear whenever I saw these icons every couple of weeks somehow got to me. Now, since I was forced to use the MacBook at work anyway, I put my bias to the side and thought, well, maybe now is a good time to give it a shot, so I also started using the Mac for my personal projects. And wow, was I surprised by the look and feel of this laptop. Everything just felt so well made and very luxurious, which is definitely what Apple is aiming to do. And the Liquid Retina XDR display is insane. It's easily the best laptop screen I've ever used. Apple is clearly going for a friendly and very interactive user experience with all the flashy colors and little animations, which I have disabled because I found them a little annoying, to be honest. But overall, I have to say that I felt pretty welcomed by the design, which isn't something that I would say about any Windows computer. They put a lot of work into creating a fantastic usability and also a very intuitive design. It just works and you find most of the stuff exactly where you would expect it to be. Also, everything is fast, like really fast. I'm used to a bit of loading time for my heavy apps like my IDE or Premiere Pro, but on the Mac you just start it and it's just there. I have to say that it was pretty easy to get used to everything, thanks to the design. Now let's talk a little bit about the hardware you get with this Mac. I think it's needless to say that the hardware of the new MacBooks destroy any competition at the moment. Not only performance-wise, but in general. The trackpad is pretty big and it is by far the best I've used when it comes to reactivity and usability. Additionally, Apple offers you all these fancy hand gestures that do some stuff, but that's something I haven't fully figured out yet because I'm not much of a gang sign thrower. The keyboard feels surprisingly good. The speakers are very rich and have a great bass and are very clear and loud. The battery life is also very good and it easily lasts for an entire day of work. But the best part about it is that it's completely silent. And when I say silent, I mean completely inaudible. The fans are always off during everyday use and only turn on when you push the Mac to high performance. So far, I've only heard them once, and that was when I was running the entire Llama 3 AI model on it. Also, it of course integrates perfectly with the entire Apple ecosystem. If you have an iPad, just use it as a second monitor. You want to copy something from your iPhone? Just paste it on the Mac. Your AirPods are always connected with any device you have around. Just to mention a few of the ecosystem perks. Once you have experienced how smooth everything can be, you probably don't want to go back to something else. At least I wouldn't. The overall experience with the Mac so far was pretty cool, and it made me realize how close-minded I've been over the last years.
I get it! I get it!
I judged something really good without ever even trying it out first, and I honestly wish that I would have tried it sooner. Despite how impressive my new MacBook is, there are still a few aspects I don't like about it, and I also miss some features from Windows. Apple creates user-friendly and easy-to-use designs for all of their devices. They always aim to keep stuff as simple as possible and want the user to understand their product without ever needing to read any manual. But there are some things I like much better on my Windows computer. The Mac dock, for example. It looks and feels very nice, but it's lacking some functionality if you ask me. On Windows, I could have multiple Chrome windows open and a single click on the icon was enough to see a clear preview of the tabs. Not on the Mac though. Clicking the Chrome icon doesn't show me anything. I have to right click on it and select the window I want to see. And what's this little dot below the app icons? It indicates that the app is still running, fair enough. So if I don't need it anymore and want to quit the app, I just click the X in the top corner, right? Well, no. The little X button closes the app but doesn't quit the app, and the little dot is still there. So in order to quit the app, I have to right click the app icon and say quit, or use some keyboard shortcuts I guess. It just feels weird. Also, using Command Tab only lets you switch between entire apps and not the single windows you may have from one single application. While creating this video, I figured out that you can use Ctrl and down to see the open windows of the one app you're using at the moment. But these additional steps just don't feel intuitive at all, at least not for me. If you just want to organize your windows by moving them against your screen border, you'll quickly notice that it's just not possible. In order to snap the windows somewhere, you'll need third-party software, and since we're in the luxury line of laptops now, it's obviously gonna cost you something. I find it very sad that some really cool apps like Notepad++, for example, are not available on Mac, and I have yet to find any good alternatives for it. Also, if some of these smaller apps do exist on a Mac, they sometimes run a lot worse than they do on a Windows computer. And the last thing I don't like is installing apps. What's not to like, you may ask? Well, as I mentioned earlier, they try to make stuff as simple as possible, but installing apps feels kind of too simple, if that makes sense. I mean, you only do this. Just dragging the app icon in a folder installs it. Done. No progress bar, no yes I accept the terms of service, nothing. It just feels like you didn't do anything, but I guess that just feels weird because I'm used to heavy progress bars and getting asked 10 times if I'm sure if I want to install something. There are just some interactions that just don't make sense for me, and I think it's a little annoying to need a bunch of third-party software for super small things like the window snapping, for example. But overall, I'm very happy with it. It's been a couple months now and I'm still impressed about how incredibly fast this computer is. Programming on this thing is just pure fun, and working with products from the Adobe Cloud just feels so smooth. I can render my videos in seconds and it basically has no wake-up time, like none. It just feels like you're getting to do the things you want to do a little bit faster and easier. I wouldn't say Apple is better than Windows, because both are great for different purposes. I'm still gonna be using my Windows PC for gaming and my Mac for more work-related stuff. But when it comes to the terms of hardware, I don't think that there is any competition for Mac at the moment. I have also realized that being so biased over the past years kept me from learning about other tech that's actually better in some ways and makes my work easier. I don't love macOS yet, because I'm still getting used to it, but I think it's the best alternative to a Windows machine you can get at this time. So if you're an Apple hater but are also not super happy with your Windows PC, right now might be the perfect time to move a little bit out of your comfort zone and give it a little try. And who knows, maybe you'll become a Windows hater sooner than you think.